I almost quit. Why did I almost quit? Well, initially, I don't know. And that's why it took a couple of days, almost a week, to sit down and think to myself, what is it that made me want to go? Why did I get to a point, and how did I get to a point where there was just something in me that said, nah, I don't want to do this no more. And I think I got the answer why. Now, there are some personal things that I'm not going to discuss in the video. I'm not going to mention in too much depth, but it's not just personal stuff. It is stuff that I am disappointed at with the game in general. Some things that have stalled, some promises almost that have just disappeared. It's all leading to me thinking, should I? Should I even bother? But should I walk away? I just want to make this clear from the start. This is not a retirement stroke I'm gone video. This is a video which is talking about why I was very close. So before we get started, if you know what, you disagree, agree, I don't care. If you know, I was gonna say if you breathe oxygen, smack the like button, subscribe to the channel. And this is one of several videos I'm going to be releasing talking about my frustrations, not just with the game, but with everything. And I'm sure you can kind of get the gist. If you don't get it, then don't worry, just watch the video and you'll probably get it. Comment to the comment section with your own personal thoughts. There are some other things which, you know, social media, community stuff that I, again, not going to go into too much detail, but I'll just mention it, and that is people who just don't keep their mouth shut, constantly going on. It gets frustrating, especially when you're dealing with other things as well, but I kind of rise above that because I've been, through my limited time on this planet, I've dealt with quite a few trolls and people who just want to go out and ruin your day. So it doesn't really faze me too much anymore. But I had to ask myself, what is it about the game? Move away from that stuff. What is about the game that's gone stale? When I had to think back to a certain period of time, and I isolated a very, very specific time period where things were said between that time period and today and never happened. And I had to go back to Cataclysm tier. We're going to cover off every single thing. Now, most of this was said on social media and was talked about in blog posts, etc. And still to this day have not happened. Their U-turns, their directions of the game, which have just become nothing, just into thin air. It's just gone, and it's expected that you just kind of forget about it until it happens. Well, I had to think about this, and I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to forget about it. I'm going to bring it up. So we're going back all the way to Cataclysm tier for the first one, and if I look away, it's because I'm making sure I get my point across about this, and I've got some notes. Don't worry, you'll be seeing everything that is on the screen. And this started off with the card limit. Card limit basically has been a massive issue. They said they were investigating and designing a better way to handle the card cap moving forward. And they said they're going to let us know when we have more to share on that. It has been 8 months, 9 months. It was even mentioned more on Twitter where it stated, we're working on a longer term solution in November. We hear the frustration. I don't understand why the main issue is not being addressed, and that is the enhancement limit, which at this point feels like it's just a way to drain money out of the people who are willing to put it in to the game. It feels like a way of taking more nickel and diming people who want to use things for fusions, who want to store up enhancements, which are now the training cards and more on that in just a second. But they could, I don't understand the difficulty And maybe they need to explain this with why, not just increasing the card limit when other games that they've produced, such as NHL, NBA, have much higher card limits, why there is not a bigger catalogue to be able to put these cards into. Why are we constantly having to get rid of these cards that we want to keep? Why is the enhancement limit so low? Why are we still having to delete cards to allow us to what basically is the main item in the game, which is collection? Because it's hell of a not competitive really anymore. That's maybe an opinion, but again, I'm going to go into that side. And man, I don't understand. They've never really addressed it. And it's now 8 months, 9 months down the line, and they still haven't addressed it. Considering it's now coming up to a year, SuperCard, what the hell, man? Come on. I mean, even in the development version of Season 6, you increased the card limit to 400. That would have been a very good change. But then again, you're still not done saying about the enhancements. So let's move on to Team Battleground. This is a tweet which came out around about the time the Cataclysm tier was released, where it talks about TBG store changes, where they're adding new card packs, the grab bag. But today still, ladies and gentlemen, we have had less. In fact, it's actually less usable than it was in the past. The TBG points are still limited to 100k. The opportunity to use these for anyone who really wants to progress is massive. I mean, it just seems like they've got the audience they're trying to target with this massively confused. But back in June 2019 and a couple other times, they added a Shawn Michaels card back, a Sergeant Slaughter attitude, and a new card pack, which was met with some criticism where they said, we'll continue evaluating the store and adding more. Thanks for passing along the feedback. Moving on to September, where they announced the Velveteen Dream event, you then see that more people were talking about promised monthly rewards, and they stated, we've added new rewards, including an attitude and a new card pack to the Battle Point store. We're listening to feedback and still looking at things we can add. Moving on into November, constantly looking at the store and want to get some stronger value. As of now, it works for certain groups of players and not others. We hear it. I hate to ask this question, but if you hear it, why aren't you doing stuff about it? It's been 4 months since that tweet. It's been nearly 8 or 9. And yet nothing's being done about it. It's almost like they don't care. Well, at least it comes across that way to the players. Based on what I know about them, they do care. Probably. I mean, I don't know specifically, but I would probably say they do care. But there's a massive lack of focus. There's no one item apart from microtransactions that right now they seem to be focusing on. I don't know what's changed that. Because we now come up to SummerSlam 19 tier. This is a semi-quarterly update again on the 25th of June, where it says player decks will be coming back to events. We're reverting back to player decks in events like Road to Glory and Ring Domination. It's not one of those server things where we can just flip a switch. This came in the SummerSlam update, and yet it's reverted back to bots only. Now, whilst the bot decks are slightly easier, player decks are the reason that SuperCard became as popular as it did. They even tried to do special events with the Macho Man Randy Savage events in September of last year, including the Road to Glory changes, the Ring Domination changes, where they made special changes which, well, with Ring Domination were fantastic, with Road to Glory flopped big time. They made it way too difficult and they changed those back afterwards, but since then nothing has changed. The best possible opportunity would have been Season 6, yet nothing changed. Why? What? Why say things like these and then revert back to them without even mentioning it? People remember this stuff. I'm just one of the people who's got the voice who's going to bring it out. Again, it comes across like there's no focus. It's like they do one thing and then they do something else. And it's so confusing. And it doesn't sound like they're listening to the feedback of the player. And I'm not talking about the hardcore players. I'm talking about the general audience of the game. Things have been stated on social media, in media posts, and nothing's happened. There's two final points, one of which is fortifying. They brought it in with Season 6 and then stated that money in the bank cards and event cards and fusions would be allowed to be fortified. Now, you can fortify fusions, just to clarify. But if I go to the game now, you cannot fortify money in the bank cards. There is no option to fortify event cards. Let's go to Drew McIntyre, this is the Royal Rumble Money in the Bank card. You get a maximum of 2. There is no way to unlock a fortification for these cards. Now, this may be coming in the future, but there is no confirmation of this. Things that they've stated in the past are just becoming regularly ignored, discarded. And when it comes to features like this, which they stated would be able to be fortifiable, these cards are becoming less and less beneficial. And it's a real kick in the teeth for players who buy into these events, and then their cards, which they've worked so hard to get squashed by the next big thing that requires credits to purchase, which I know a lot of people have been thinking about this season. And this brings me to the final point, and that is these 2 paragraphs here. Just to give you some context on where the collective heads at SuperCard HQ are, we want Season 6 to be all about quadrupling down on SuperCard as a hobby. When you play, you'll notice more dynamic content and a game world that reflects more WWE stuff. You saw us moving in this direction late last season with Velveteen Dream Experience and then with the Halloween promotion. We also want to make sure your voice, your thoughts and feedback continue to be represented. The last 5 years of this game couldn't have happened without you joining us and giving us your opinions. In Season 6, we'll be honing and refining the game around your feedback. We hear your concerns about Over the Limit. We hear your opinion about what could make Giants Unleashed feel tighter. We got you on wait times in PvP, and we heard you about the shaking the card system up and expanding teams. Now, some of that has been done. More WWE content is coming to the game. More dynamic content is coming to the game. It's stated, and I quote, quadrupling down on SuperCard as a hobby, like most mobile games are. There are always the hardcore players who will play this game on a regular basis. What's happened in this season has become more of a requirement, more of an obsession to have with this game, and more spending, more nickel and diming, as I've mentioned before, more pay to win than it has ever been in this game. They've not made things easier to become a hobby. They've not listened to the feedback, because the feedback is everywhere. The feedback is everywhere. Everything I have said, apart from a few points, completely debunk that statement, especially about making SuperCard a hobby. And that is why I sat down and I thought to myself, everything they've said, do I even believe it anymore? Do I feel that I want to experience this? And at one point I said, no, this was not a hobby. This was an obsession. And the only way to keep up with that obsession was playing week in, week out, spending week in, week out. Now, I have no problem with doing events and doing packs and doing things like the Adam Cole quest for the content for all of you on this channel and all of my Twitch subscribers and Twitch viewers. I came to the conclusion that a lot of what Season 6 was said to become A lot of the future plans just got discarded. Promises that were made disintegrated. I'm not going to bash on the game, and surely there'll be more features coming soon. But some of these features were needed a year ago, 2 years ago. And at some point you do have to say, enough is enough. This kind of stuff was needed ages ago. What about the stuff with the stats? They stated that the stats would be banded. That the Nightmare, Primal, Vanguard, Royal Rumble cards would all have their specific banding with stats. And yet today, still struggling to read the numbers on these cards. You cannot tell me that despite all the additional graphical benefits, like this card looks incredible, absolutely incredible as it is, can you honestly say to me that when you pro this card and it looks like this and the stats are taking up most of this panel, that it doesn't look attractive as a new player? And I've said this time after time after time. They're going to come in, they're going to see these stats and go, holy crap. My cards down here are like nothing compared to these. Doesn't even look aesthetically pleasing. This card, for example. I mean, the card design is okay. It's a little iffy. But just those numbers. I mean, I'll give you an example. They put out a joke tweet, which may be a joke tweet. We might just be jumping to conclusions here. But they put out a joke tweet about Braun Strowman's stats being wrong. And I have to be honest with you, I like that card design better than I like this one, because this one, the numbers are everywhere. How I would dream and wish that when they say that they're looking into things and when they say they're doing things, they actually do them. Some people are going to say, yeah, JB, you're just ranting. And if that is the case, then I apologize if this has come across the wrong way. But I wanted to get this out here because this has almost been everything that's been on my mind for the last week and a half. Maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Let me know if I've missed anything that's been said. Comments down below. And I'm just going to peace out there. Have a good day, people. Stay awesome.